Welcome to Sales Bites by Journey, where we talk about everything you need to know to be a killer at sales. I'm your host, Will Jenkins. Let's get it.
Hello and welcome to Sales Bites by Journey. My name is Will Jenkins, CEO and founder of Journey, and I'm your host. We're going to talk today with a new friend of mine, Lars Ward, Vice President of Automation Solutions at Transflo. Lars, thank you for being here.
Well, we've become fast friends. Thanks for having me on the show.
Let's go, man. We got to yuck it up a little bit at Manifest. That was a blast. We chatted for like 45 minutes. I enjoyed that.
Oh, it was great. Oh, yeah.
It's good. That's good, man. Well, thank you for taking some time to share some of your sales knowledge today. Before we dive in, give me a quick fun fact. That's how we always start.
All right. Fun fact, and this is pretty cool. My uncle was the U.S. chess champion for most of the 80s and 90s.
You don't say.
Now, listen. I might not beat you on the board, but I know some people who would.
I got a guy. It's very important. That's awesome. Also, that's some big brain stuff. Winning chess is not easy.
Yeah. So he's one of those guys I've asked to play a few times.
Yeah.
First time I asked him, he said, no, I'm a professional. I don't play for fun. Second time I asked him, this maybe 20 years later, I said, hey, let's play. He's like, all right, let's play. I'm about to go get a board. He says, no. Playing up here.
Playing up here?
And I said, oh, no. Different.
I'm all set on that one, Unc. I'm all right. Oh, my gosh, dude. That's awesome. Okay, so before we start talking about your topic, I want to get a quick 10,000-foot overview of your career and then where you're at today. So give me a rundown.
I've recently joined the team at Transflo as the VP of Automation Solutions.
Congrats.
What a great team. Thank you. I'm very fortunate. Transflo has an incredible team, incredible legacy in the industry, but we also have what feels like a hyper-growth startup within the business as we're going and leading back office automation solutions. So super thankful for that. Now, before joining Transflo, I'd been in the industry for about 13 years, spent most of my career at Knight Swift, really got to see an exciting run at Knight. The acquisitions in the asset space, the growth in the brokerage, power only, was really thankful for my time there. Left in 2021 to be a founding member of FreightVana, one of the fastest growing freight brokerages during the time I was there, had a really exciting run. Left FreightVana at the beginning of 2024, spent a year over at Chima. Shout out to my friends over there. Great mid-sized asset, carrier, good-sized brokerage. So I've got to see the large mega carrier. I've seen sort of the mid-sized carrier, the startup freight brokerage, and a little bit of everything in between.
That's a really cool career journey, and also very diverse in terms of the types of companies that you've had exposure to, which I can only assume leads to you being able to attack your new role from a particularly unique vantage point, because there's a lot of people that you all do business with, and all of those are people that you've been on the inside of those organizations. That's
what makes me so excited. You're totally right. I've seen it from the provider standpoint, and now I get to go help providers drive business excellence.
I love that.
Opportunity.
All right, Lars. Well, really appreciate you being here today. I know the topic that you want to tackle is the impact of AI in our space. And boy, is that word or phrase buzzing right now. So I want to hear your take, man. Tell me a little bit about it.
Buzzing. It's so I'm passionate about this conversation, but it's hard to cut through the noise. Mm-hmm. There's way too much hype around AI. And I think we almost have to admit that at this point, but this does feel different. I know we were talking about blockchain before. We were talking about 3D printing before, and all kinds of other technologies, I'd say, over the last 10 years that we have thought were going to really move the industry forward. And what we've seen from AI over the last 3-4 years is that it is different this time, right? Yeah. But how do we make sense of what's hype, what's noise, and everything else in between? All right. I think the first thing we've got to say is we don't know exactly what the future of AI is going to look like on a long-term basis. But here's where I'll place some bets. Over the next 3 years, those things that can be automated can and probably should be automated very quickly, right? So at Transflo, I'm excited about what we're doing from a back office standpoint. I've been a 2-time customer of our back office product, and I've seen an incredible ROI from the manual work that we should take out of our business. But let's talk a little bit more broadly, I think digital freight matching, those conversations start to come back.
They're back.
A different engine to power what we're talking about, and probably not as a provider, but probably as solutions that empower providers. All right, that's really interesting. Optimization and routing tools, we've always worked on getting better and better and better. But with large language models, now I think we're going to see a different level of firepower there. You know, the other thing, this is something that we should have conversations with shippers around. What happens in a world where you can have near perfect inventory? What happens in a world where you have near perfect demand planning? So there are some things where we're thinking about the 50-year vision of AI, but we're not thinking about the 5-year vision.
I love it, man. There are so many good tidbits of what you mentioned there. I want to go back to one specifically about automation, right? So what you all are building there at Transflo to remove items that just aren't, we'll not say they are not important. They're incredibly important, but they may not be what you want someone spending their time, clicking the keys doing. You'd like to have them do something that might generate more revenue or create more, long-term value. Talk to me a little bit about how you think AI can actionably remove some of those things, because a lot of buzzwords, a lot of yapping, but what do we think it can actually do?
So I love the way you've teed it up. There's a lot of manual work, quite frankly, too much manual. So think manual, think repetitive, and then think low impact of value work that we have to do, not to win customers, not to serve carriers, but really to support the foundation of the business. And it's that kind of repetitive manual work that AI can help us to automate. So a lot of it is in, I would argue, building technology, right? Deploying AI that can understand the human workflow and then come alongside. We'll still have a human in the loop for much of what we're talking about, but take out the heavy lifting. And then as the human, right, as that knowledge worker, we're focused on the exceptions. We're focused on the problems. We're focused on where we can move the needle, not on getting the dirty work done, right? I had one customer, this was last week at Manifest, and they said, if you can take out the soul-sucking work, my people can drive the needle. And I know, hey, brutal, but it's true. It's true.
I wasn't ready. That's tough.
Hey,
it's true, though. It's true.
The line I'm stealing.
It's true. It's super true, because those are the types of things that create churn in a role.
Yeah.
And, it feels like you're just doing the same darn thing, and you enter the digit incorrectly, and now, the whole process is thrown off.
Everything breaks down.
Yeah. People, no one loves doing that.
Right. We talk a lot about connectivity in the industry. And the truth is sometimes we're just pushing paper back and forth. What ERP are you on? What TMS are you on? Are we doing EDI? Are we doing, API? Which carrier? How often do you use that carrier? How do they invoice you? How do you pay them? How do you get paid? This is a web that gets really messy, and it's something that AI can come in and help us clean up. So I think there's this valid concern around, does AI move the needle? And then what does it look like? And again, when we start to think about these really manual, repetitive processes, that's where technology is going to really create ROI-driven outcomes that matter. Now, there's some other cool things. There's some technology where it's like, whoa, if you could do X, Y, and Z, that's really exciting. And I don't think they're close. We've got to focus our attention on what drives outcomes today.
I like that you mentioned that. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No. Hey, I think that's kind of there's a difference between, I think, and this is where I've tried to focus on. There's a difference with the technology that exists today and what it can solve versus the dream state.
Yes.
We live in this dream place when there's already solutions at play right now that are so exciting.
It's interesting. One thing you mentioned, this would be a takeaway for me, is what drives outcomes today.
Yeah.
I think there are some really cool pie in the sky technological advancements that people would like to get to. And so you have a conversation with someone and they tell you everything that the product wants to do. It's really in their head. And then you go, okay, what can we do today? And all right, well, it does this. I'm like, okay, sick. I know you want to get there, but what am I going to do for my customers today that has the most impact on them when they get back to their office and keep doing whatever it is that they're working on? How do I drive that forward today? That's a huge gap that it seems a lot of organizations may miss, because you should always be selling the vision. You be thinking long term, but how do I impact your business today? Because that creates customer loyalty, which then allows me to layer on these other pie in the sky things that it takes a while to get there.
We've got to have a vision that we're excited about, that we're chasing after. But we can't sell the roadmap. We can't say, hey, squint and you can see it, right? What would really drive your outcomes today? And I think if you're a leader in the brokerage space, you should ask the question, if I'm going to adopt this technology, what outcomes can I expect by when? And if you're having that conversation, I think we're really paring down the world to this exciting vision of automating the manual processes. And that has to be priority one for everybody. Here's the bet I'd make. 3 to 5 years from now, we are not going to do those boring, repetitive manual tasks that, quite frankly, are highly error prone, right?
Highly.
I want to have the technology knock that out so I can focus on the creative stuff that can't be automated.
Highly. Man, you're spitting straight hot heat, Lars. This is good stuff. Before we wrap up, I want to go through and just talk through some of the notes that I took and then fill in any gaps that I may have missed. So the first thing you mentioned is that we don't really know long term what the future looks like, but you mentioned that if there are things that can be automated, they should, and they most definitely will be. They're in the process of occurring. That stuff is happening right now. You mentioned that digital freight matching will become more prominent, but it's more of a solutions-oriented setup. So there may be add-ons or particular products or services that help people match freight more effectively. You mentioned optimization and routing tools, which is honestly probably really underrated, right? Being able to just understand how to optimize your network, whether you're a carrier partner or a shipper, is incredibly helpful. You mentioned near perfect inventory and demand management, which I'm sure there'll be some people on the shipper side that'll listen to this and go, gosh, please get me there. But
Right.
Yeah, that'll be a game changer. You mentioned that manual, repetitive, low impact, lower value things are what organizations are likely targeting. And that you should be building or selling technology that drives an outcome today. So that's super important. The last one, I think this probably comes from you buying technology in the space and now being on the side of being able to help people understand how to adopt the right technology. You said, if I'm going to adopt this tech, what outcomes can I expect by when? And I think that's a great thesis to purchase technology in any space.
Yeah. We were hanging out last week at Manifest and having so much conversation about what's coming out to market. And there's so much that's exciting, but I love the way you just anchored it back to, I was buying this technology recently. I was reviewing it, and the thing that was my North Star in the conversations are, well, what can I get done right now? There's so much noise, and I think that should be sort of the razor we use to cut through the noise and say, all right, does this create value now? And if it does, that's what I got to go chase after.
100%, man. I think it's important to be able to evaluate what's going on now. Think long term, where will we be in a few years? But we need to make decisions on how this impacts our business today. And so if you're not making your buying decisions on that, it's a little tough to get the outcomes that you'd like.
Yeah, exactly. The conversations around AI are so exciting. We know that there's so much data in our business, and it's data that we wish we could get our arms around. The carriers want to work with their drivers better. They want to route their drivers better, and they want to drive profitability and OR in their business. The brokers want to find the right shipper at the right time and match them to the right carriers predictably. Everybody wants to automate that manual work in their business. And I love that you kind of picked up on the note for shippers. Shippers have so much to be excited about. The warehouse gets more efficient. The routes get more efficient. And man, perfect inventory, this is a dream state, right?
Yeah.
There's technology that's going to get us closer and closer and closer. With everything we just said, come back to the edge, to the razor that we should use to measure everything. What outcomes can I get by when?
Man, I love it, dude. Well, thank you so much for spending some time with us today on Sales Bites. Really appreciate it. Got to have you on again, man. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for the invitation. Such a fun conversation.
Awesome, dude. I'll see you later.